Hi guys, and welcome to Insight with Adama Yusuf on Kama TV. Well, in the show today, we will be talking on press freedom. Do we have press freedom in Nigeria? How does the journalists relate with each other? We need to be trained and retrained. It's on these facts today that I'll bring to you a doctor with Mao, that is Modibbo Adama University here in Yola. And we'll be doing this together today because he will be trashing this. He has been a sound journalist, a veteran journalist, and he is well experienced to do this together with you today. Join me shortly as we come together with Dr. John Ngamsa. Hey everyone, welcome to your number one show, Insights on Kama TV with Adama Yusuf. And today on the show, we will be talking on press freedom. And that is why I'm here with Dr. John Ngamsa from Mao. He has been three-time commissioner for CESA. Am I correct?
Yeah, to some extent.
Okay, Commissioner for Information, Commissioner for Culture and Tourism, and Commissioner for Commerce.
Yes.
Well, we are really privileged to have you here today in the studio.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Right.
I understand you have this great passion for journalism, communication, and press, and all of that. And you're one strong person we all respect in Adamawa here on that ground. So I would like you to tell us today what you really understand by press freedom so that our viewers out there can get the knowledge.
You know, press freedom, as simple as the term is, appears to be equally technical, you know, in terms of its application, where it comes to the doing and the practice of the journalist himself. Somebody out there may just think that information is free. Information can be accessed anyhow and be processed anyhow and be given out. But most sincerely, you know, it takes a process and it takes technicalities in trying to make it actually become a doable content, you know, that make up for the reality of what the practice is all about. By the time you strike the code and begin to understand where these two stand, you know that press freedom is more of a technical term that applies to what journalists do, how they obtain information, how they pass it, and how it is assessed, and perhaps how it is evaluated and used by the community, the society, and the government at a go. So if you talk about it, you're talking about a practice which should be free enough to give the practitioners some kind of hand, open enough for them to source information and to process that particular information and pass it to the general good of the community. So to my mind, it's all about what you think press freedom is, you know, particularly where nobody is trying to make you not to say something simply because he wants it in a particular way. Yes, something like that. So.
Okay, so do we now say we experience freedom here in the north specifically? Let's start from the north before going around Nigeria. Do we experience press freedom in the north here?
Well, talk about the practice itself. It will be difficult to isolate what obtains in the southern part of this country and what obtains here as far as the practice is concerned. Because we have a body, we have the NUJ, that's the National Union of Journalists, you know, that looks at issues of practice and ethics and whatnot and how they're supposed to relate. So there is no clear dichotomy to my mind, you know, how it is practiced down south and how it is here. I see it virtually as one thing as far as Nigeria is concerned. Because out here, you see people from the south practicing journalism here, and in the south equally, you know, people like Abba Jalingo somewhere around Port Harcourt, and the problem we had in too, and the coming of the NUJ, at least to try to make up issues to be. So to my mind, it's virtually the same thing all over Nigeria. So there's nothing too difficult there, except, you know, some cultural differences and applications where in some cases, you know, you are likely to see people talk about certain things that happen here and don't happen there. And for all those exigencies and difficulties, you know, journalists still maneuver to be. So one can say that the rating of journalism practice, you know, both in the south and the north appears to be virtually the same. So it would be better, to look at it from the Nigerian perspective.
Yes.
In as much as, we can give it to the fact that the southern part of this country, has the largest share, of practitioners, of stations. So the content out there is more robust than up here in the north. That I believe is just the context of development. But I think we're all leveling up, and things are becoming literally the same. So you can talk about a journalism content, that is more applicable, to Nigeria, at large, than virtually trying to segment it and look at it from another perspective. Yeah.
All right. So that will not bring us the aspects of Nigerian as a whole.
Yes.
Do you not think we, as journalists here, experience press and freedom of press?
Yeah, to some extent. Nigeria is not actually doing bad. Looking at quite a number of things that we shone out. However, it is not without challenges that are global. We all know that where journalism has a problem, is the ongoing battle, between misinformation, dissemination, and disinformation. And it all depends on who is at the end and who looks at it from whatever perspective.
Okay.
First, how do we pass the information? How does it go? Is it made up of our checks and balances? Then why do we have content that are not restricted? Why do we have content that are not clear enough? And where do we have deliberate cases, of propaganda coming in, people mischievously, and deliberately trying to make up information, for the purpose of trying to confuse the public. All this, it's universal, by application. But when it comes to Nigeria, I would like to do a commendation, to insist on the simple fact that yes, the Nigerian press is quite robust. The Nigerian press is out there. Our social media content is highly vibrant and robust, and people come out now that virtually everybody is like a citizen journalist. You pick your phone, the next thing you focus on, the next thing you say becomes the media content.
Yes, everybody.
Yes. In as much as we see that kind of placement of information in their need of regulation and more sincerity, definitely is just a reflection of who we are as far as the practice is concerned. And if it is, to my mind, I would like to think that there's something we need to do, perhaps, to raise the content and to ensure that the practitioners are also placed in such a way that they can do the work more effectively. Now you talk about training, then you talk about regulation, then you talk about social responsibility, then you talk about nation building. Virtually by the time you put all these are things that move on, and not necessarily without confusion, without conflicts, without clashes. And such clashes are always there as far as the practice of journalism is concerned. Even in civilized societies like the United States of America, recently they held theirs with the President of the United States of America in White House, where he held a dinner for them. And Trevor Noah was there to internally extray what journalism is all about. You look at it, both of them, the President who spoke on the occasion, and Trevor Noah, who looked at it from the inside practice of itself, spoke about what is ongoing about journalism, which is conflict, where truly some people will have to feel otherwise about how information is passed and how it affects images, and content in the society, and why there is a need at least to regulate. So basically, that journalism is like an ongoing war, between individuals, between institutions, between governments, between people. But what matters most is the fact that the practice itself, is taken to be serious by the measure of its own content when it comes to application on social theory, in terms of what you can give to your nation by learning to speak the truth, no matter how difficult or hurtful it is to somebody, as long as it is going to add value, to the building of the society. So to my mind, basically, the practice, whether abroad or here, under totalitarian regimes or authoritarian, whether under democratic regimes or liberal democracies, you look at it, there's something somebody is always trying to say, which another person doesn't want it in a particular way. And I believe these are matters of ethics and how you intend to put the information at least to flow.
So that's a very good one. And I know we just had the avalanche that we're going out for a short break right now, and then we'll return back shortly to continue on the show. And welcome back to the show. You're still on Inside with Adama Yusuf on Kama TV. Don't forget to like our page. You can like our page, place your comments, and also share our stories. Well, sir, thank you, and you're welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Deba.
Yes, we've been here with you since we're discussing on press freedom all around the world and over in Nigeria here also.
Yes.
All right, sir. Now we'll come down to the regulatory bodies. Yes, of which I know we have regulatory bodies like the NBC, and then we have other bodies regulating the aspect of journalism. What can you say about these bodies regulating?
Well, there's no country without a regulatory body when it comes to the practice of journalism itself. Even in the United States of America, in UK, and whatnot, they have boards that look at the issues as they are. Nowhere outrightly in the whole world, where information is given out without some form of caution, without some form of regulation, without you learning to put it right. That must be, and that is why it is constitutional to have such bodies, and that is why they practice. In Nigeria, basically, we're lucky to have, the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, which takes charge of basically what obtains on the radio and the television.
Yeah.
And the main line of what they try to look at in most cases is to do with how content is raised and how content is packaged and how content is passed. Basically, to ensure that there is a balance, between what you do. What percentage goes for foreign content, which one comes for national content, which one goes for local content. All these things must be in place for us to have a total picture of what a nation is.
True.
Because you cannot run a station, and keep doing foreign content and expect that you are building that particular nation. And that regulation should be there. But one fundamental thing that a regulatory body like NBC keeps putting across is the need for balancing, whether it is on the religious or on the political. You talk about PDP, for instance, we have to talk about the APC. Even if the station, it should be balanced. And I believe that without thoroughness, it applies more, to the practice of journalism itself, which balance is the order of good journalism. Then you have other regulatory bodies like the Press Council, where they look at issues of print, media. And I believe that the government have been, a little more working up to meet up the aspects to do with the social media regulation, whatever it is. However, it went too bad and too sore, at the point where, they had to shut down the Twitter, because the Twitter was really tweeting and touching on sensitive areas and whatnot. But it's just the usual thing. Even in the United States of America, we've seen cases where a whole president's handle, was shut down in the interests of national security. And some of these things come handy for us to understand the placement of the regulatory bodies, where they actually appear to help in social theory responsibility monitoring. Where people are trained, not only to learn to say bad things about their nations, but also good things that will move the nation forward. And on that platter, I think I like quoting one-time president of is it Tanzania or Kenya, Arab Moi, that once spoke to journalists, and he said something like, the foreigners would like you to say things about your country their own way, and you'll go and do it. Now, what are we telling you to do about your own country in your own way, and you are failing to do it? So if they ask you to go and embrace your mother in the marketplace, will you do that? And all of them kept quiet. And that means that it will be thorough madness for a journalist to keep exposing his nation, passing information, misinformation, disinformation, terrible information, bad information, seditious, libelous information, and all manner of bad content that comes with irresponsible journalism. So strictly, I agree with the fact that yes, there should be some regulation. The regulation is not only to trample on press freedom, but to regulate and to improve on the content and the practice itself, so that the content will be guided and what people will say about their nations will be good enough. That is good enough, you can see the difference, in the United States of America, and you can see the difference also, in Russia. You can see the difference of the practice in China, where they've decided, for instance, to segment how they process information. If they are on CG something N, what they do is they give you the content you require for entertainment. They put a bit of their culture. But once they are in home, They do their own Chinese thing in their language. They regulate what they don't even
there's
give
no-
the
okay,
foreigners.
this is it, yeah.
So China is becoming more diplomatic on that platter,
Mm.
and the United States of America is going on liberalizing, but still not without the fact that they know what they're doing for their own interest to protect what, in quotes, they call liberal democracy, even if it is not good for us. But then it's an issue of balance where we have to look at it from what our regulatory bodies are doing, how they're making it, how they're actually processing it, at least for the interest of our own nation. So to me, it is good to say that to have these bodies in there to regulate is fine, but for also allowing them to be excessive in going too political, that's where issues come in, particularly the shutting down of channels at the point, and the AIT and the threat on others, while others are left out, they appear to be a lot more extreme. Right. So there should be better ways at least to regulate them, to make them actually function more effectively.
Okay, my people, you heard from the doctor himself. He said there should be a better way to regulate journalism and all of that. We are going for a short break right now, and we'll hit his session right now. All right, people, you're welcome back to the show again. We're just back from the short break, and we've been discussing things on press freedom with Dr. John Ngamsa. Yes, and then I know we've been talking about the regulatory bodies, journalism, and all of that. And I think now we have to give words to journalists out there. We're just discussing and we talked on the aspect of us going digital because the world is really transforming, is going digital. So what do you think are your words to journalists everywhere, all over the world, and in Nigeria?
Well, globally, you have to look at the ratings of journalism, by the terms of praxis and the environment. In the United States of America, it's quite sincere that they are moving with the age. And perhaps that is what called for the need for, the United Nations to put the word digital practice, to the World Press Day now. Because the challenge we're having, it's all about what the digital world is giving to us. Today, you will accept with me that the practice of journalism is not like it used to be.
Yeah, sure.
Even the simple gadgets we have in this particular studio have shown us that you don't need a very big, large referencing cameras, to get the kind of resolution that is there. Today, with our handsets, we have citizens of this nation doing whatever it is, providing content for virtually everybody, and the speed of information is moving fast. That calls for additional challenge, for the journalists in our own part of the world, particularly where we are practicing today, to insist on catching up with what the provisions of the digital world is giving. It means that calls for the changing of the kind of practice and the training we've been receiving, from our institutions. And then the challenges in different studios, and stations and the conference halls and whatnot. The work is getting sharper and more serious. So it calls for attentiveness. And the fact that the practice must add something to itself. So the journalist that feels that I just have to move with just a pen and paper, and drop exactly what it is, that one you just have to be at the back, in as much as it's good also to take notes and to ensure that you balance essentially what you do. So it's a call to journalists to improve. It's a call for those that train to also change the training, to make it more global. It's a call, for managers and practitioners and proprietors, of different papers to insist on ensuring that the practice is brought to the level where it should be. And in doing so, I want to believe that a journalist from our own perspective in Nigeria will have to add up something to whatever he's doing. Earlier on, we spoke about the issues of social responsibility, where you look at your commitment to your nation and what you're supposed to do. But also there's something about that which you need to actually deviate a bit. Information has no stop or end. It flows. And in managing it, you have to understand why there is a need for the journalist to be a little more cautious, more serious, to take virtually everything that he's doing well. There are challenges and differences and changes. So if you don't catch up, you're going to find it difficult too. So just like the military do, they train by day, they train by night, so that they don't get any surprise at all. They have what is called an operational timing hour, where every time is morning. I want to believe that that is the kind of instinct that a journalist should have. The emergency situation. If you are
Very
out,
ready and
actually,
prepared.
yes, if you're working, you know, to ensure that information flow exactly the way it should be, you must learn to train yourself to know what it is, to look at the changes in the profession.
Okay.
Today, the gadgets you have are changing every day. So virtually the minds of people are changing, you know.
Sure.
Earlier on, nobody knows that Chinese, you know, can come up with what is called TikTok.
Yeah.
And what is the motive of TikTok? TikTok can engage you with, let's say, 1 minute episodes, you know, for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And now they're taking the concentration of what you are going to have on the Nollywood, you know, to sit down and watch a movie for 30 minutes. So you see, the Chinese have done a research to understand that if you remove 1 minute out of 30 minutes, you can make money that somebody who is offering 30 minutes can do. So essentially, these are the kind of challenges, you know, from the commercial perspective, from the editorial perspective, you know, from the educational perspective in itself, from the training, you know, so that by the time somebody is leaving, he's not just leaving out of the campus or with just theories of sociology, of communication, you know, but once you are asked, you cannot practice. So let it be that training is an essential aspect and part of journalism itself, and that should be taken seriously. Now, just before we went, I was trying to talk about the idea of what is happening to quality control, you know, in studios, you know, in broadcast houses. You know, definitely you notice that those days, you know, the idea of quality control, you know, was brought in purposely to ensure that journalists, you know, get over themselves, they check themselves so that they can now get to do and affect perfection. You know, if you cast news, why did you get a slip? You know, if it's a slip, then is it mispronunciation? Is it whatever it is?
And
you
you
know,
should be corrected.
you should be
You're
corrected.
not
So next time you'll be conscious of it. How to even handle, you know, errors in emergencies, you know, while broadcasting, like the typical one we've had presently. You know, what's the quality of our gadgets? For how long will a battery take? You know, and then what do we need to fix it? And how do we fix all these things to ensure that we get it right, light and whatnot? How do we handle some of these things? So to me, journalism should be about innovation, should be about reinvention, should be about changes, should be about training, and it's something you have to be doing on the spot and all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very good one, Doctor. Oh,
thank you.
I'm pleased to have you in the studio. And once again, for those of you that we're not hearing introduce him at first, this is Dr. John Ngamsa, a doctor with MAO, and then he's a one-time commissioner, like 3 segments, like 3 times, commissioner for information, commissioner for culture and tourism, and commissioner for
commerce.
Thank you, Commissioner, for commerce. We are pleased to have you here today in the studio, sir. Thanks for the wealth of knowledge you've dished to us here today, and we'd love to have you more and more again in the studio.
Thank you, Odoma. You have a beautiful studio around here. I wouldn't mind coming into it again.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Thanks again. And then for you out there, I'm sure you've learned a lot from our discussion today, press freedom and how we could regulate ourselves, and how we can also train and retrain ourselves as journalists. So thank you so much for following us on the show today. I am still Adama Yusuf, and you're on Insight with Karma TV. And also you can follow us on our channels, like our pages, and also subscribe, comment, and just say something about the show. If there's anything you want to contribute, why not contribute? And then add up your own opinion to the show. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.